And welcome in, everybody. Coffee and Sports Talk Show. I am your host, Andrew Scheid. With me is for sure is my Matt Donnelly. How you doing today, Matt?
I'm doing good, everybody. How are you, Andrew?
I'm doing okay, man. It was a fun weekend for me. Spring training kicked off and for the MLB and first PBA title match of the year 2026, the Players Championship, is now in the books. And let me tell you about that. I was completely thrown for a loop when it comes to that tournament because the guy I thought that was going to win, and EJ Tackett, I talked about him before in the last show, he was the number one seed in that tournament. And I honestly thought that he was going to win, and he ended up getting beat by a rookie of all things, first year on the tour. And how did he get beat? Well, he he bowled a 300 game to win the tournament on TV. And let me tell you, this rookie, it was his first ever televised appearance.
If you could put
That's
if you could put this into some kind of context for non-bowling fans, what is this like in the bowling world?
okay. It is extremely hard to do. Extremely. I know someone that has rolled the perfect game, and for those that don't know, that's getting nothing but strikes the entire 12 shots you have in a game. Very hard to do. I know someone who's done it, and he's only done it once in his life, so it's that hard. And to be able to do it on TV in the PBA is even harder to do. That's only happened 35 times in the PBA's history, and the PBA has been around since the 60s. So
Do you think that the televised nature of it makes it any more difficult for these guys, or just any kind of added pressure of knowing that this is nationally televised? Millions of people potentially could be watching this.
I think, well, it obviously does, and I can tell you what does because here's the difference. When you get to that TV finals, you're bowling in a way different atmosphere. You're bowling under TV lights. The oil patterns are going to transition a lot faster because they're under those heated lights. So your TV play is going to play a lot different than it was in the qualifying rounds and match play during the week, which is what you have to get through to get to that step ladder final that is televised. And for those that don't know how rare this is to happen televised, the last televised 300 game was by Jason Belmonte in 2023. So it has been two full seasons without a televised 300 game. So that's how rare this is for the PBA. And for a player to do it not only in his first season in the PBA, but your first ever telecast that you make and you bowl a 300 game, that's amazing. And the one thing I like about this rookie, his name is Brandon Bonta. Not Bontra, it's Bonta. I had to I had to check myself on that before I said anything. It's just amazing what this kid is able to do. And I watched his the whole telecast because he was there from the first match to the last match. So an amazing thing. But one thing when you look at highlights from his first match, and we have some here, Matt. Um, the one thing that's really fun about that is he just never changed his line when he was bowling. He never switched up anything. And the one thing I liked about it is he bowled pretty straight the entire tournament. Here's his teammate that he bowled in that first match. And the cool thing about Spencer Robage there is him and Brandon Bonta were actually college teammates when they played together in college. And they said before this match started here, when that first ball was thrown, they were no longer teammates; they were competitors, and that's the way they looked at it. But you can see in this first match just how straight he was playing.
And that's pretty rare, right? For PBA, usually they have those big curves, right?
Right, and it all depends on the oil pattern you're playing on, and you could see there just how mean a bowling alley can be too. And you could see here he was using two different balls for each lane, but you could see there that pin just shook and went around and everything like that. But the cool thing about that was his first match, and it just never changed. His line never changed, and you would expect from game 1 to game 4 that your path to the pins is gonna change a little bit because the oil pattern is gonna dry up. There's not gonna be as much oil on that lane as there was game 1. And he might have switched over about 2 boards by game 4, and when I say 2 boards, guys, there is a the way a bowling lane is set up, and you look at it, there are little striations. A bowling lane is made up about maybe 20 to 30 boards, if I had to guess. And each board is separate. So when a coach looks at you and says, I want you to move 2 boards, what he's saying is, and I wish we had a graphic of this, there's those 2 boards, and you're just gonna move 2 small little boards, and that's where you want your ball to be. Or sometimes your coach will say, "Aim for the 2 or 3 arrow." And what that means is you'll see those arrows, everyone knows those arrows on the lane, and they usually go from as a southpaw, I always hated this, but they usually always count from right to left when it comes to that. So when you say you're one board, that's your first board starting on the right side of the lane, and then you're going all the way to the left, counting down. So when a player says, I'm going to hit that 16 board, that's the 16th board from the right side. And that's where he wants his ball to hit. Does that mean where that's how it's always going to happen? No, but that's just what you want to do. And Bowl's a 300 in his TV debut. The nerves already in this guy on your TV debut are big in itself because, like I said, you're under lights, you got cameras on you. Literally, where these guys were sitting, had a cameraman in between the two of them in their spots where they were sitting when they weren't bowling to constantly get images of them. So you're just constantly on camera wherever you are. You're never off camera. And so that's just something you always have to be wary of, and nerves automatically set in with something like that.
Looks like producer Nick wants to say something as well here.
Yeah, if I can have a quick question, almost piggybacking off what Matt asked, is this somewhat almost maybe equivalent to like who was that rookie for the Blue Jays this year? He came out there, didn't have a
Savage.
Yeah, you Savage coming out there, having a stellar playoff performance, almost having a no hitter in the playoffs. So would that be almost kind of the same of like rookie coming in, almost like throwing a no hitter? Is that almost the equivalent here?
Oh,
just short of being a perfect game.
Yeah, no doubt, and that is exactly what it's like. That's like a pitcher coming in and throwing a no hitter. Bowler came in and threw nothing but strikes, and that's very hard to do.
And you said that the guy he was going against, they were college teammates?
In that first match. So for Brandon Bonta to get past that first match, he had to beat a college teammate, which if I had to ever go up against my teammates, that's a weird thing because when you bowl as a team, you're relying on each other all to bowl good. Here in a tournament like this, it's just you.
And which school do they go to? Is there like a bowling powerhouse out there in college?
There's not really a bowling powerhouse. Don't quote me on this, but I believe it was Wichita State. They both ended up going to.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
That sounds like they'd be pretty big on bowling out in Kansas.
Right.
I could see it for sure.
And one thing I want to talk about is how he was just able to go to that title match and make it all the way there, and just, in my words, dismantle EJ Tackett, the best bowler on the tour right now. And we actually have highlights from that title match. And it's not that EJ Tackett didn't bowl a good game, because he did. And we have some highlights of his title match game. You can see right there. He, again, one of the better bowlers in this league, one of the best right now. Just has one of those pure strokes that, honestly, to me, for a one-handed bowler, when he's able to create the power that he does, is just amazing. But you could see here from match 1 to match 4, Brandon Bonta's line did not change whatsoever. He loved where he was playing. He probably said in his head, if this is working for me now, why change it up? And everything like that. But he's just something really love about this kid, and I can't wait to see, this is his first year on the tour, and we see EJ Tackett didn't bowl half bad, but he had like mean shots like that. And as a bowler, I hate that because you hit the pocket perfectly and leave a 10 pin. But here we got Brandon Boncha's last shot to have a 300 game coming up here pretty soon. And you can see this is his last frame and just how pure those strikes were. But here's the last shot.
Crowd reaction. Pretty cool stuff right there, huh, Andrew?
It really is. Let me tell you something. I was watching that live. I was watching that live, Matt, and by the time he got to that last strike, um, in that 10th frame, I was behind the chair. I was sitting in. I was literally going down on my knees, like I was praying for this kid to roll 300. Because when you get to that last strike, it's almost in your head. You're like, okay, I'm either gonna bowl a 300. I'm gonna be really upset at myself, either being a pin or 2 pins away from a 300 game. Because either way, that's gonna sit with you forever as, oh my god, I rolled a 300 on TV, or it's gonna sit with you of like, oh my god, I was only 2 pins away from a 300 game on TV. What did I do wrong?
Now he would have won that though, regardless. Even if he did bowl like a 298, he still would have won that, right?
Yeah, and like I said, EJ Tackett bowled a good game there in the title match. It's just Brandon Bonta from frame one put his foot on the gas and never let up, as we saw there, bowling a perfect game. Now has his first major title. Now, for people that don't understand and ended up, to end this segment is there's a difference between a normal tour title and a major title. Think of it like uh best way I can try to explain this is like uh wrestling, you might win a match like a normal NXT match, but that's way different than going out and winning WrestleMania, right? That's kind of like their major championships is big televised stuff like that, right? So that's kind of like what this is here with the PBA is you'll have your smaller tournaments like this weekend. You have the Pete Weber Classic in St. Anne, Missouri. Um, and that's just a normal tournament play title. But tournaments like the Players Championship, the USBC Masters, the Tournament of Champions, those are all major titles that are harder to earn because you need to have done something really good to be able to make those telecasts. Um, and to tell you, it's not easy to win a major title. The player with the most major titles on in PBA history right now is an active player, and he only has 15 of those major titles. And he's been in the league for almost 20 years. So, and that's Jason Belmonte. He is now the league leading with 15 tour titles, major titles. He has way more titles than just 15, but just 15 major titles is amazing in itself. But to wrap up this segment, I'm very excited for Brandon Bonta and what he can do this year because it's first year on tour and you've already run a major championship and bowled a 300 on TV. So excited to see what's left. We got the Pete Weber Missouri Classic this weekend. The qualifying rounds right now, one of my favorite players in Jason Belmonte is number 2 right now in the qualifying round. So we'll have to see what happens the rest of this week going into Sunday into that. But a great
Yes,
segment, and
it seems like a very exciting start to his career here, and hopefully he can keep it up, and hopefully it's one of those where he can continue that sustained success and not, have it trail off ever. But
right.
when we come back, we're going to be talking about some golf here. We're going to be talking about the PGA, Scotty Scheffler and his slow starts, as well as what does this mean for Jacob Bridgman with his first career win, coming up next. Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Coffee and Sports. I'm here with Andrew Scheid, and I'm Matt Donnelly. We're going to be talking about some PGA here today. Um, if you remember our last episode, Andrew, we went a little bit in depth as to our how the PGA works, right? We talked about signature events a little bit. Do you remember a good amount about what we were talking about there?
A little bit here and there. My brain kind of got stuck on the
There was a
Windy
lot of
City
stuff.
polls as we were working those
Yeah.
games.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm trying to revert back to
Right.
working the show, you know.
a little crash course. We were talking about signature events and what those mean, right? It's basically the best of the best are able to play in these. It rolls over from previous years. It's kind of an exclusive club because the points are doubled almost here as well. So you're already in this privileged group, and now you're getting even more points. And sometimes there's not even a cut, so you're guaranteed points and money. So this previous weekend there was the Genesis Invitational. This was the last one out in California on the California swing, and Jacob Bridgman wins his first ever career tour. Got to give him some credit there. Jacob Bridgman coming in, getting his first ever win, and we can see here in a 51-man field at the end, and I'll get into why that's what my grievances with that is here in a little bit. But he shoots one over in the final round, but he does end up winning. He has a 6-shot lead going into the final day. And so because of that, he's able to win. He nets $4 million from that win. And he also nets 700 FedEx points.
Yeah, I will say,
yeah.
I didn't mention this in the bowling segment, but he just won 100 grand plus the pucks an extra 10 grand for only the 300. So a 4 million purse is a lot more.
Well, that's what, and we can all thank FedEx for that. Thank you very much, FedEx, for your FedEx points and your $4 million here. That's another fun little fact. If you didn't know about the PGA, every year when their playoffs begin, they play at, I forgot, South Haven, I think is the name of the course, but it's in Memphis, right by the global headquarters of, you guessed it, FedEx. There we go. So my issues with this, I went into my grievances about it. I think we agreed on the fact that it is kind of a skewed system here. And, very big for Bridgman here. First ever career win. Again, you don't need to be in these signature events just based on winning, right? I think that's something that bowling and golf have a lot in common here,
Right.
is the fact that you're able to be successful and place very highly in these events without necessarily winning. Because like you said, in bowling, winning is a rare thing, correct?
Right. I mean, unless you're really good, you're not going to come in and win every tournament. Like Brandon Bonta right now isn't even in the top for the next tournament. So I mean,
Right.
it all depends on who's doing, like golf, who's doing better day by day.
Yeah. And Bonta, one thing that really connected with your story about him with bowling is that's why I really ended up loving one of my favorite golfers. His name's Sahith Theegala. He's out of California. He lives in Texas currently. And in his rookie season, after playing on kind of essentially the minor leagues of hockey, the Corn Ferry Tour there, or not of hockey, sorry, of golf. In the minor leagues of golf on the Corn Ferry Tour, he was able to make it to the tour. And in one of his, not his first ever start, but one of his first starts, he almost wins it.
Right.
And like you said, with the 300, right, he ends up not winning the tour or winning the tournament in that one. But that almost, it creates even more of that emotional connection, right? But you don't need necessarily to win all of these tournaments to get to this. And so he wins. It's a 51-man field. Typically, Andrew, a normal field that you're competing in after the cut is about 76.
Okay.
So 76, 70 to 76, it all depends, right? It's usually top however many plus ties. And so with this one, there's also a lot of interesting stipulations, I'll say that, about how to qualify, how to make the cut.
Right.
With this, it's top 50 plus ties. Essentially meaning if there's, 47 guys and then a bunch of these other guys are tied for 48th, even if there's more than 50 total, they're still kind of within that top 50, so they'll place.
Right.
Also, you need, if you're within 10 of the leader, okay, so wherever the leader is, even if you're in 60th place,
Yeah.
if you're still within 10, you can still make it, right? So there's a lot of weird stipulations. It ends up being there's only 51 guys that make the cut out of the initial 80. So it's a very small field, very small post-cut field. And I think this just kind of gets back to my original grievance that I had from last week that we were talking about, in the sense that this guy's winning $4 million and winning, essentially, basically solidifying his place in the playoffs this year as well. 700 points will basically put you there. You don't have to do that good the rest of the season to make the playoffs after a 700-point win. He gets that for defeating a field of 51. And that's just my big problem with these signature events, because look, the format of the playoffs is already a little skewy, but also now we're doubling the money. Like, I'm sorry, I really don't care that this guy's getting $4 million. If that's an incentive as to making more people want to watch, like, hey, the prize money is doubled, I don't really care. This guy's already got sponsorships. He's already won millions of dollars on tour if he's at this level. That's just a grievance that I currently have, that kind of bringing over. And I don't know, does anything like that exist in bowling, Andrew?
I think the one thing where we could say golf and bowling are kind of the same, the way the pro tours play out, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here. Does golf play for each televised final? They kind of start and whittle down their field to get to that final 6 or 5 or whatever it might be that are televised.
Yeah, so it's weird. You mean specifically with who they're showing on the televised broadcast?
Like who they're showing, like,
yeah,
actually makes that final cut.
Yeah,
right?
It depends, because like sometimes there won't be any guys that are shown on TV, but typically the final 10 to 15 guys, you'll see at least some, if not followed for the majority of it. The final 3 or 4 groups are going to be followed pretty regularly and consistently. And of course, that final group with the top 3, however many, top 2, 3, or 4 guys, those you'll see them the most. But it'll sometimes flip back and forth, because, you know, a lot of guys are golfing all at once. So it'll flip back and forth with that. Right. But yeah, it's just a major issue, because, you know, we throw the term Mickey Mouse around quite a bit, and I don't want to disparage any win on the PGA Tour, but at the same time, I can't say that I feel bad, because he won $4 million and solidified his place for his tour card for the next 2 years. But it's like, if that does end up being his only win, with golfers being at such a high competitive level, that's not going to go down as a particularly impressive win in a signature event with a 51-man field. It's not the best. And I'd say the biggest accomplishment that he had here, aside from winning, was the fact that he was able to stave off Scotty Scheffler. And so Scotty, if you didn't know, Scotty doesn't know. If you didn't know, there we go. Nick liked that one. Scotty is one of the best. No, he is. I'm sorry. He is the best player in the entire world in golf. And, you know, I'm not going to say anything about Tiger Woods comparisons or anything like that, because that's just another level. But Scotty went on an absolute tear last year. Right? Won a lot of tournaments. He won 6 tournaments last year, and he's already got a win this year as well. Also, by the way, if this isn't my final point that I'll say about how messed up the PGA playoff system is, Scotty won 6 times last year, clear leader by over 1,000 in points. At the end of the season, all said and done, he didn't win the playoffs. If that just doesn't, whatever.
Okay.
But here's an issue. Here's what I'll say that might be hindering Scotty a little bit this year. I saw a pretty funny meme on Twitter the other day that was like, does Scotty know that the tournament's starting on Thursday? Because he's only shot in the 70s above par 3 times this entire 3 rounds, I'm sorry, out of 12 so far this season. And all 3 of those were in the first round. Now, when you look at his success, the first tournament he plays and he wins, right? He wins the Genesis. But He does really well that first round. He shoots a 62. He sets the pace really well. But then following that, he shoots 72, 73, 74 in the first rounds of his next three. And if you look at how he ends up in these tournaments, right? I remember watching this most recent weekend. After the first round, it was suspended for a little bit. He was all the way at the bottom of the leaderboard. He was +5 at one point. And I was like, what is going on with Scotty? This is so unnatural of him. This is not like him whatsoever. Is he going to get cut on a signature event? It would have been crazy to imagine that he could have done that. And then I check back in on him later, and it's like, oh no, he's even. He comes back. Right, he's able to pull within, and that's been the most impressive thing so far. Is he has been top 10 in all of these events so far, right? If not outright winning. So if he would have just had a better first round in some of these events, he could be 4 for 4 right now, right? Based on the way he's played.
But like golf is one of those sports like bowling where you're not going to know how you could have an amazing day one day and the next day completely smurf the bed. It's one of those sports too. And I could ask you this, Matt, do you see the playoff format changing for the PGA in upcoming seasons?
You know what? Sadly, I think just kind of like everything else in the world, it just depends on our people watching. And I think there should be more of a different approach to it, right? I think if just to make it a little bit more interesting, instead of just playing a straight tournament, right? Instead of just going straight for, hey, who can shoot the best scores over these 4 rounds? Because that's just how every other tournament is, right? That's just how it always is. If you went to more of a Ryder Cup approach, not on a team setting necessarily, because Liv's got the teams, but the PGA doesn't. If the PGA was kind of to go more to that, match play type of thing instead of stroke play. Stroke play is just who gets the lowest score, right?
I was about to say, so the PBA, what they do is they do qualifying rounds the first couple days of the week. Then you get to what they call match play, which really whittles down. Then they get to the final 5, and that's who makes the telecast on the CW.
Yeah, I think that would be a lot more entertaining if you were to see, Scotty Scheffler versus Rory McIlroy
That would be a good matchup.
in
be a good matchup
in like a best ball situation. Well, maybe not best ball because you'd need a partner for that, but in some kind of other competition besides just who can score better, right? That could make it a little bit more fun. But honestly, I think they're kind of just driving FedEx's boat, because they need to they need to utilize their points. They need the points to matter, and so because of that, they need to use that sponsorship money there. But I think it would benefit them because in all, if you couldn't already tell, I find their format to be a little antiquated, a little old, and kind of boring to be quite honest. But we'll see. I mean, my thoughts on this here, looking at Scotty, I think it's just going to take him a little bit of time. I don't think,
he's not going to.
He's warming up
like he did last year, but it could take some time. But he can get there again.
Yeah, I mean, it might not happen as early as it did last year, because one thing that was new for Scotty last year was the fact that he was actually winning after May. Okay. That's always been his thing. In previous years, he was never really able to win after May. He was able to get a few wins last year after May. So maybe this year it's kind of the opposite, where he's starting and slow for him again is top 10, but not winning, not being as dominant as last year, but at the same time kind of ramping up and then fixing whatever you got to do, because that happens sometimes in golf. I see it with my guy Thigala all the time. He'll have a bad first round, great second round, bad third round, okay fourth round, and it's consistent. So I don't know what it is, but
all right, I have one question to ask you before we get off here, Matt.
Yeah,
kind of out there question. Tiger Woods' son, does he eventually make the PGA Tour one day?
He will, but he won't be as good.
I had a question for you as a golf fan. I had to ask that question.
Yeah, he won't be as good, but it'll be interesting to see how he does. Thank you very much, folks, for tuning in to the Coffee and Sports Show. We'll be back again tomorrow night. For my co-host, Andrew Scheid, I'm Matt Donnelly. Have a fantastic rest of your night.